Welcome, everybody, to our presentation on how to become a secular ambassador. My name is Kevin,
My name is Braynon.
and we're youth organizing fellows with Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. We're here today to share what we've learned during our time as secular activists.
So we're going to start off with some questions so that we can answer some overall broad issues. Starting off with, what inspired you to advocate on behalf of secularism?
I became inspired to be an advocate of secularism and church state separation because I believe it is important for activism to be inclusive, and we can all benefit from taking action that will benefit multiple groups at once. Church state separation affects many of us, and by taking action towards advocating for church state separation, we're fighting for multiple groups of people at once.
I absolutely agree. And building on what Kevin is saying, the intersectional approach, we also need to believe in the Constitution and in the principles of separation of church and state. The fact that it's rooted in our laws means that there is inherent value in following this practice of non-discrimination and of ensuring religious freedom as well.
I think that's absolutely true. Next question we have is, what is the most important thing you would tell students that are looking to become secular ambassadors?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I'm going to start off by saying that it's really important to connect with the coalitions that already exist. Groups like SSA and AU are already doing this work. So reaching out to the organizers on the ground, learning from them, applying the same strategies in your own communities, and making sure that you have a group of people who you can rely on and ask questions to as well is always a great place to start.
I think that's a great point. Everyone who is looking to become a secular ambassador should research organizations that advocate for church state separation and go to their website for action to take. They may direct you to contact your representatives or simply research an issue. That's always a good place to start because afterwards you can share the actions you take with your groups and take on a leadership role.
Thank you. So the next question we have is, how can students advocate on behalf of secular constitutionalism?
That's a great question. Ways to get involved include asking your representatives to co-sponsor a bill like the Do No Harm Act, for example. Other ways include hosting a fundraiser to donate to an organization or Planned Parenthood clinic, writing blogs and op-eds to bring awareness about issues going on, and of course, organizing your community groups to multiply the reach of your actions and influence.
Absolutely. I also want to echo the importance of writing that op-ed because you get to do so much good research about the issues that you're talking about while also putting down your ideas on paper. Having conversations with other people on campus and doing things like running for student government can ensure that policy change, even on the local level, is equitable as well and also follows by these principles.
I think that's great. So, what advice do we have for students who are looking to decide to become secular ambassadors?
Yeah, so I can start off. I think first it's really important to engage in relational organizing, reaching out to people who you already know and already have relationships with, and you can build on those relationships and compel them to be an activist alongside you.
I think that's a great tip. One tip I have is to reach out to people that are doing the work that you're interested in, whether it's through email, LinkedIn, finding an internship coordinator, or another person working in the secular space, because when you reach out to them, they can help provide you with an opportunity to get involved.
Absolutely. A third thing I would say is it's important to do research about the issues that you care about, knowing the facts so that when you engage and advocate for these issues, you're able to do so eloquently and with a lot of background knowledge.
That's a great tip. The last tip that I have is to follow organizations like AU and SSA that are bringing light to legislation that addresses church state separation and will bring awareness to church state separation issues. It's a great way to get new information and stay involved.
Absolutely. And now that we've discussed some helpful tips for becoming a secular ambassador, we're happy to share an important way that you can take action today, which is advocating for a policy in Congress known as the Do No Harm Act. So, we're going to start off by talking about the Do No Harm Act and why it was created, and then talking about ways that you can get involved. So the problem starts with a misuse of a policy passed in 1994 known as the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. This was largely passed amongst bipartisan lines and was trying to ensure that religious freedom was going to be enshrined not just in the Constitution, but also in American federal law. Unfortunately, because RIFRA has been misinterpreted time and time again, it's been used as a sword to harm others instead of a shield to protect. In Hobby Lobby, for example, it allowed for the denial of birth control coverage by employers on the basis of religious beliefs. It allowed for government-funded employment discrimination, foster care denials, and so much more that harmed LGBTQ+ people, adults who decided to have an abortion, and other religious minorities who were being harmed by misinterpretations of RIFRA. That's why we introduced the Do No Harm Act, which will fix RIFRA and restore it to its original intent, ensuring that it protects religious freedom but cannot be invoked to harm other people. Kevin will share what that might look like.
Absolutely. Some of the things that the Do No Harm Act can do is undermine non-discrimination laws, which deny access to healthcare, evade child labor laws, thwart laws that protect workers' rights, refuse to provide government-funded services under contract, refuse to perform duties as a government employee. The Do No Harm Act will prevent RIFRA from being able to do some of these things. And relational organizing is a great way to maximize your influence. Relational organizing is when you take groups who you have community with, whether it's your faith groups, family, neighbors, coworkers, friends, people you see regularly, or acquaintances, and getting them involved to make sure that you have the maximum outreach in your advocacy and activism. And if you would like to support the Do No Harm Act, you can go to act.au.org/support-DNHA and reach out to your members of Congress and ask them to sponsor the Do No Harm Act.
Again, go to act.au.org/support-DNHA, which stands for Do No Harm Act. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and we're looking forward to answering some of your questions in the panel later today.
Thank you. Take care.
Hello, and welcome to the writing portion of this conference. I'm Alexander J. Kalaniethis, a freshman mechanical engineer at Loyola Marymount University and author of 4 scientific papers. I'm currently part of LMU's CubeSat satellite team in designing its propulsion system, the deployment of it, along with the development of a new power supply for the satellite. I've been an active atheist since 2013. Participating in political and religious debates, educating and defending students' First Amendment rights, along with writing to members of Congress throughout this pandemic. My father, David J.P. Kalaniethis, represented FFRF in the Ninth Circuit Court against my former school district, CVUSD. Now, it's kind of ironic how an engineering student is to talk about writing. As my friends and engineering professor have mentioned to me, engineers hate writing. But for me, writing is a way to express myself. Whether it be a thesis, a letter, or an essay, writing tells people who I am and what I'm about. And given the core fundamental principle to good writing, your writing should be about who you are, how you think and how you feel and how you talk, establishing a connection between you and your audience. You shouldn't worry about how your audience is going to think or react, because your writing should be about and for you. This is your chance to share your story, your narrative, and your passion about what you want to write about. If I were to teach a course on good writing, my first instructions to you as the students would be to write. The next day, those instructions would say, rewrite what you wrote yesterday. And the day after that, rewrite what you just rewrote. And that will continue for about a week or so. And as annoying as it sounds, what I'm trying to get at is for you to condense your writing without changing or losing its meaning. Unlike what high school teachers teach, there is no such thing as a good writer, only a good rewriter, because your first writing would always be the worst one. As a goalie, my water polo coach always told me the most important save is the next one, and that is true with writing as well. Your most important writing, your best writing, is the next one. Now, there are several ways for you to condense your writing, but the most important and often overlooked method is to omit needless words. This is how you find the better way to say something while keeping your audience engaged. The more you rewrite, the better your style becomes, and the better you become as a writer. Which then begs the question, when do you stop rewriting? When you feel you're ready. When you feel it captures you, your tone, your thoughts, your feelings, who you are as an individual. That is when. As I said earlier, writing allows me to express myself in times of crisis because it allows me to dive into the crisis, to understand and to develop and to express what I'm feeling, my thoughts and opinions on what's going on and what needs to be done. And in return, it has made me a better speaker, a better conversationalist, and a more intellectual being overall. And with these skills of putting yourself in your story and continuously rewriting it, you'll find yourself to be in a more powerful but unique position and a better individual overall. And with that, good night and good luck.
Hello, my name is Joshua Flashman. I'm the president of the Secular Student Alliance at Florida State University.
And my name is Mary Zhang. I am the co-founder and president of Secular Student Alliance Penn Montreal. Today, we're here as newly elected student government leaders to give you a few tips and tricks about how to run for student government.
First, understand your school's student government system.
Student government systems may vary greatly from campus to campus.
For example, at my university, running with the campus political party is crucial to getting elected.
Well, in my university, any slating or parties for elections are not allowed, and all students run as independent individuals.
Secondly, before the election process begins, you need to do your homework. Whether that means talking to student political leaders to learn about the climate on campus, or getting involved in campus to learn more about student needs.
Or more specifically, this can mean logistically understanding whether the position you're going for is appointed, elected, or slated by a party, and making sure you meet any paperwork or procedural deadlines to make sure you're on the ballot. Thirdly, even though the election process can seem intimidating and competitive, remember, you don't have to do it alone. It's always helpful to have a buddy to run with. That way you have someone to navigate through the procedural and the electoral system with.
And if you're running with a party, they'll help make sure you meet on-campus deadlines for registering for the position, as well as helping strategize your campaign.
This leads us into our next point, campaign strategy. This means developing strong platforms as well as communicating them effectively to your voters.
On my campus, that means campaigning in person on election day to get as many votes as possible. One strategy we utilize is printing out postcards with QR codes that link directly to the election and are major platform points for voters to be informed.
Or more virtual means of campaigning include Facebook pages, Facebook events, Instagram pages, or just campaigning on your own social media pages. However, you should be aware of any campaigning rules and regulations of your specific campus.
You can also seek out endorsements from Greek Life or other influential campus organizations.
And congratulations! Now that you're a newly elected or appointed student government leader, allow us to offer one last point of advice. Always expand your advocacy. As secular humanists, our advocacy and leadership should always go beyond those who share the same identity as ourselves. We should always aim to center and amplify voices of marginalized communities, even those we're not a part of, such as BIPOC, LGBTQ, women, marginalized religious identities, and more.
For example, I worked with Muslim student leaders and organizations to define and fight against Islamophobia on my campus. And that concludes our section on running for student government.
Thank you all for tuning in, and hope you found it helpful and insightful.
We can't wait to talk with you guys at the live session following this.
See you!
Hi, my name is Sean Rivera. I started my SSA involvement in high school and went on to become the president of the SSA at UTSA, so University of Texas, San Antonio. And from there, went towards intersectional activism, and now I work in a public elected office. So first, I want to thank SSA for really putting me on the trajectory, that led to where I am today. I was involved actually, started with my high school Secular Student Alliance, had a fantastic experience. It was really the first time that I was exposed to folks who were interested and or felt passionately about, uh, you know, socioeconomic or sociopolitical issues. I had really never had exposure to that before, at least, in my peer groups. Um, I was definitely hooked from there and very eagerly sought out the Secular Student Alliance at UTSA, so University of Texas San Antonio. Made a lot of great friends there. My roles, from there, I was the public relations officer for some time, and then I think for the majority, I was president. Um, Y'all gave me tons of amazing opportunities. So I was able to speak at, Secular Student Alliance conferences, panels. I actually, I definitely was able to get familiar with a lot of, secular leaders. I always take every opportunity in secular conversations to shout out, Mendy Thomas, who I absolutely adore. So that's always been a pleasure, any interaction I've gotten with her. And I was able to speak at actually, I believe, their first Black Non-Believers conference at sea. So that was a great experience too, as well as, a few other conferences and, conventions that have happened over the years. And that expanded. I spent a lot of time with the Freethinkers Association of Central Texas. I wasn't a parent at the time, but I think that allowed me to kind of expand my friend circle with a little bit more diversity, and I love that. Uh, from there, as you mentioned, intersectionality and the importance of it. I definitely started to expand the scope of my focus to LGBT plus issues, definitely, of course, racial justice, which I had already had, personal experience in, a lot of those issues, being Black, Mexican, Puerto Rican, uh, reproductive justice, and the list goes on. So I, had a fantastic time meeting so many people with so many, different passions. Yeah, so I think, when it comes to engaging with different communities, or when it comes to having, a specific set of goals that you would like, or things that you would like to see change in society, a kind of philosophy that, at least I took in a lot of my work is, understanding that if you empower the people, or if you focus primarily on empowering the people instead of putting all of your eggs in pushing this specific initiative. So you can go out there and you can go to the state capitol or what have you, and ask for a specific elected to, well, enact your wishes or the things that you want to see. And there's a gigantic role for that. But also, for example, like my voter registration work, the value of that, especially the value of the nonpartisanship and the uh, indiscriminate nature, of carrying it out, uh, was that I believe in democracy in the sense that the more people, or the larger the portion of represented folks there is, I personally believe that the more representative uh, the result will be. Um, and I know that doesn't sound counterintuitive at all. But of course, there are a lot of folks out there who will look at, some of the things that they hear, some of the more toxic things they'll hear out there in the community, and, they may not have certainty. But if I go out and I, go to a place that I think on average, or, a group that I, really do have a lot of faith in. So young people, if I go to 50 colleges and, commit my time to registering those folks indiscriminately. I know that you're definitely going to get, some people who may not vote along, your values. And of course, for every one of those, I at least, think, and I think some of the changes that I saw, throughout my time doing that work, in, city electoral politics, even some state electoral politics, I think it comes together. A lot of other things fall into place once you know that that group has the tools, even if it's not immediately tangible, and you can't directly see the results of your work. When you look at the aggregate result, you definitely start seeing change. So I would hate to say have faith, but when it comes to, there are some things where without having extremely detailed, widespread data analysis systems, you can still look at a basic principle, of, find a demographic that needs more representation, register as many people as you can, or activate as many people as you can, and to some degree, trust that the results will be there. And if it doesn't mean a flipped seat the first time, don't get discouraged, continue the good work, and every time it will inch closer and closer, or at the very least, those people that you've activated or registered to vote, or in whichever other interaction you had with them, you at least have planted a seed that at least, on average, as said, as an aggregate, I really think will at least lead to positive outcomes that maybe you weren't expecting.
Thank you for attending our conference panel on becoming a secular advocate. If you're interested in learning more about SSA's Secular Advocate program, you can visit secularstudents.org/advocate, where you'll find the application and resources available to secular advocates.